closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Takia Thompson, your host for our Talk It Out Tuesday show. As we begin with our Beyond the Headlines segment, many issues continue to make the front page, but one trending topic has sparked public outrage and may have possibly lowered public trust in the TTPS. 4 months after the deadly police shooting that claimed the life of Joshua Samaru and left his girlfriend Kaya Seeley paralyzed, the case has taken a dramatic turn. The director of the public prosecution has advised that Seeley be charged with manslaughter as well as multiple firearms-related offenses, a move that has sparked street protests and intense debates over police accountability and the justice system. Former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith joins us this morning for this discussion. Good morning, Mr. Griffith.
Hi, good morning.
Now, Mr. Griffith, firstly, what was your immediate reaction to the decision to charge Kaya Seeley with manslaughter in Joshua's Samaru death?
I wasn't surprised. I think about 2 or 3 months ago on this station, I actually said that that is going to be the next step by those certain elements in the police service. There was a video footage that you'd have seen on WESN where I said, based on this, if it is that I know the direction that they will go, the next thing you will hear is in a few months' time, you will hear that she had a firearm. And so said, so done. And I am not here to state that the police lied or that Ms. Seeley is innocent or guilty. I am just speaking about the facts. The facts are, however, that the DPP people, you cannot and should not criticize the DPP. The DPP is only making decisions based on what is presented to him. So if it is, for example, something is padded, something is irregular, something is accurate, he's going to take what has been given to him. He's not an investigator. He's not on a fact-finding mission. He's not here to read the room, to make the politically correct statement. That is not his job. Having said that, the red flags that have been raised, they're astronomical. It starts with the first comment made on the first day when this happened, where the Commissioner of Police foolishly said that he saw no reason for any action to be taken on these officers, which is in direct contrast to international best practice. I had a similar situation of shooting in Mouvoir when I was Commissioner, and all 18 police officers were immediately suspended from day one. This is not about right or wrong. This is not about targeting them and accusing them of being guilty. You have to remove them away from the situation to ensure that the situation doesn't become volatile, or whether there's some instability of the officers after what they have done until the investigation has been completed. And that was not done. He then went and foolishly said, you all don't know what happened a few minutes before. It shows his ignorance in understanding law enforcement at a senior level. Somebody could use a bazooka and 5 hand grenades at law enforcement. If a few moments later on the spot, when it is you confront the individuals, they are not a threat, you cannot speak about what happened before. We then heard the Minister of Homeland Security then make probably the dumbest statement ever, other than Philip Alexander stating about Venezuela and being nuked by India, when Roger Alexander said he wants to lay charges on people if they have their CCTVs in their homes and it is used on social media to give information to the public. It shows that there's a fear factor of utilizing the technology that is available, which goes to the point that, again, I had 1,200 body cameras. If these body cameras, had they been used, it could have very well cleared the police of them being found guilty right now in the court of public perception, or even pinpointing that the police officers, they were wrong and there was excessive use of force. We then went on to the situation where we could ask the question, why wasn't no gunpowder residue testing done on the hand of the suspect? Why would her fingerprints tested to have it matched with the alleged firearm? Why for 6 days when she was in the hospital, you never spoke to her about the firearm? Why for 3 months after the incident, you then brought it to the attention of herself and her attorney that, oh, by the way, we found a firearm? Why wasn't she arrested? If it is that police officers knew that someone shot at you, by right, you can have that person incarcerated indefinitely during a state of emergency without the charge being laid. So many people are being charged and incarcerated indefinitely during the SOE for based on intelligence. You have a situation where you claim that a woman will have shot at you and you allowed her to leave. Why it is that you allowed her to leave the country? And then when you looked at the police officers and how they performed in that scenario, if it is that there is a claim that persons are shooting at you, you cannot in any way be so ignorant in your basic training in law enforcement to put yourself open and to make yourself a bigger target. If it is that people were shooting at you, you then saw a police officer actually put in his assault weapon to the side. I don't know whether it was a stoppage or the clip was emptied, and then took out another weapon several seconds after the ceasefire, which is excessive use of force. And again, so we can go on and on with all of these different things. We can look at how the shot was, where it is her defense attorneys are stating that her shots would have been in her back. That is conducive of someone who is crouching and hiding from cover under the dashboard of a vehicle rather than turning her face for open confrontation. And let me finally add, the desperation by some, and that's why I realized I had to intervene, because I realized that certain people, they were lying to the country, because there was the video footage that went in slow motion and it showed the glass, the fragmentation of the mirror of the window, the back window, shooting outward. And you're hearing someone and you know, this is when it is you know about bad police. Well-spoken, disciplined, tough, and very arrogant. So that's some police officer, and if you look here, you will see that the glass was coming out. And the glass coming out, it means that it is that the shot came from the inside. That is a lie. That I have been, as a commissioner, I mentioned numerous shootings at vehicles, shootings from the outside. The fragmentation based on the shock waves will it will shatter outside and inside, and vice versa. So let us remove that from the equation. With all of these things, all that is required is for the Commissioner of Police to be able to clarify these matters. And he may very well have good justification in these things, but you cannot let all of these questions remain unanswered.
Yeah. And now, Mr. Griffith, you know, the TTPS says that the charges, and you mentioned it even before, were laid on the advice of the DPP. So how much weight does this carry in that public domain?
Well, as I said, the DPP, he will get what is provided to him. No, my take on this is if it is that for 3 months after the shooting, the alleged suspect was not even told that she was a suspect in a shooting. So you have not been able to give her and her attorney the possibility to say, look, this is what we are bringing to you. You need to have your defense and your statement. So for the first 3 months, if suppose there's a statement made by the suspect / victim, and it is given to the DPP, that statement would not have any of the things that I spoke about to defend her, because she was never being told that she was being accused of committing a crime. And if that is the case, it is unfair to the DPP, because it means that the police now would have given the DPP, we turned up there, this lady was shooting at us, we were forced, we had a fear for our lives, the usual blah, 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 and we were forced to fire. And if that is the case, and the individual now did not know that she was being accused to the officer, the DPP, that she was a suspect, how could she be able to defend herself? So all of these matters have to be clarified. It puts it in a very difficult position for even the DPP, and it is very embarrassing. And again, as I said, if it is you knew this, why would you allow her to leave the country? Why would you not have her incarcerated? Why would you tell her about it 3 months later? So all of these things, again, and people have the audacity. There's a government minister, Philip Alexander, who is attacking the media, attacking persons who want to protest, attacking myself, anybody. He's the biggest defender for this incident. And I think it is very disgusting that a government minister could attack people for having the right to defend that, to give their view. This perception about sub judice and all that, it shows people's ignorance in understanding the law. This matter is not before the court. So this is totally free for people to give their views and their concerns pertaining to matters like this. So for people to be so stupid to say, well, no, this is matter sub judice, we're not supposed to speak about it, that is not true. What the comments are being made are questions that are being asked for clarification. That is all it is.
And when you mentioned that clarification part, you know, the public is, they have an outcry on this matter. So many persons believe that Kaya Sili is a victim rather than a suspect, especially after, you know, being left paralyzed. And do you have any thoughts on how the public is going about this outcry on the matter?
Well, a major red flag that I got had to do with the arrogance. I would say the most dangerous thing is to give an ignorant person authority. So you have many people who are very concerned. It is their right to be concerned. And with that, they decided to go outside the police admin building to voice their concern. Had I been the commissioner of police, I would have gone out to meet with them to give them the assurance the matter is being dealt with. No. Instead, what Guerrero had decided to do was to chase all of them like dogs and say, hey, you all are nuisance. You all, under the regulations, we can disperse you all and even charge you all because we see that you're a threat to national security. You have 100 odd persons, all they're unarmed, mostly women, children, elderly persons, and they're voicing their concern in a silent protest, and you see that as a threat to national security. So all that you have done is now escalated the situation, and then threaten them to tell them if they go to the DPP's office tomorrow, we're going to charge you as well because you're a threat to national security. All that you're doing is trying to muzzle people, and this is going to be seen as a police state. And when you want to speak about myself, because I know the critics will speak, I had a similar situation with Black Lives Matter, where hundreds of persons decided to converge opposite the US Embassy to voice their concern. And I could have easily used the same colonial law that has been used by Trinidad and Tobago Police Service far too often in an extreme measure that it should not be utilized. And instead what I did, I allowed it to happen. I put police officers on the running walking track to make sure that they didn't get across on the other side of the road by the embassy, made sure the embassy was secured, and allowed them to protest. There was no threat to national security. In fact, I walked through the crowd to give them the assurance that what you would have seen in the United States with the police service would not happen here. That is the type of professionalism that we need, not the arrogant display to say that because we as police and you're a threat to national security, I refuse for you to embarrass me and to speak ill of me. That is not how we deal with it. This is why public trust and confidence now is at probably less than 5%. I left it at 59%, from the highest in the public service to now the lowest. There's a reason for that. And let me add, this has nothing to do with the police officers. These are the same police officers where public trust was 59%. So before people continue to criticize and condemn the police officers, it is not the police officers, it is the hierarchy and poor leadership.
And Mr. Griffith, you mentioned about the charges that, you know, the TTPS they have to justify these charges. So what specifically should the police now explain to the public in terms of these questions being asked?
Sure. Again, so if somebody like these questions that I just asked have been brought forward, as the Commissioner of Police, I will do a press conference, not be petty and try to attack the people who are asking the questions, which is what he continues to do. If not, sometimes he blocks you, sometimes he ignores you, or sometimes he moves in a condescending manner, and you will see him, he'll come in the press conference. So yes, so I am telling you that just yesterday, in that arrogant police tone, that is not what is required. What is required is, as a good commissioner of police, or a mature one, or one that is experienced, of which he is not, you're supposed to say, okay, this is why we didn't do the gunpowder testing on her hand. This is why we didn't do the fingerprint testing. This is why my officers did not adhere to the basic principles of armed conflict and know how to cover from view and cover from fire. This is why the police officers, several seconds after the ceasefire, still uses firearm. Let me explain why it is she was hit in her back, even though we claim that she would have turned her face to the back of the vehicle to confront the officers. This is why we didn't tell her that she was being a suspect in the first 6 days when she was in the hospital. This is why we waited 3 months until we decided to tell her, oh, by the way, you're being charged. This is why we didn't arrest her. This is why we allowed her to leave the country. Those are the things that he must answer. Just answer those questions, and you may have very good reason to justify and explain those questions. But in the absence of trying to explain that and answer that, you are going to cause the court, as Renee Cummins, who's probably one of the top criminologists in this region, to state, the court of public opinion is quickly finding you guilty.
And Mr. Griffith, the public initially believed, you know, that police officers themselves could face charges. So has the communication surrounding the case created confusion and even more mistrust, like you were mentioning before?
Yeah, and again, the reason for this is because we have police investigating police, and this will always take place. This is what happened even with myself. They were rogue police officers involved in corruption, over 100 million TT in overtime corruption annually, utilizing police vehicles, running drug blocks. When I suspended, arrested, or disciplined them, demanding polygraph testing, drug testing, demanding they put on body cameras, all of these things frustrated certain police officers. They couldn't do me what they did earlier, Christopher. If they had come into my office, I'd have told them where to get off. So they ran to politicians, lied to them, in the hope to have me removed so they could go back into their criminal trade. And this is a very, very small percentage of police officers in that service, by the way. But again, when you have your batch investigating you, there's going to be that strong perception of cover-up. And just the opposite as well. Sometimes you have that police, that PSB has also been an avenue where I've seen police officers deliberately make false statements on other police officers because they have them off or because they're trying to get promoted ahead of them. You can't have police investigating police, which is why the Police Complaint Authority cannot and must not continue to be a toothless bulldog. They must have not just the investigative authority, but the authority to also enforce laws and to arrest police officers, similar to the internal affairs in the United States. That is what is required. A failure for that, we will continue to have this problem, and you can always have that strong perception, whether true or not, that police will be covering for police. And that is what affects public trust and confidence in the police service.
And with the protesters even, you know, they are calling for the removal of the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of Homeland Security. Do you believe this situation, well, as you mentioned before, it's a crisis of the leadership and accountability, and, you know, not for the public to take it out on the policing staff itself?
Yeah, well, the removal of the line minister, that is the direct authorization of the Prime Minister at the time, whoever that may be, as it pertains to the Commissioner of Police. This is where a major concern I have come in. I could ask you right now, who's the chairman of the Police Service Commission? You may not know. The vast majority of the country may not know. And the reason being is that they have not made one comment, not one comment, since Guevara has been appointed. Is it that somebody in that Police Service Commission joined the police service with Guevara, and if that is, and they have some relationship, and if that is the case, that person should recuse himself in any matter pertaining to Guevara. You recall the previous Police Service Commission chairman, whether it was Bliss C. Prasad, Judith Jones, Gooms, or whoever. At least once a month, the Police Service Commission will be putting out releases to put a degree of assurance to the public of certain things. Within the last year, we have been seeing Guevara involved in He has refused to utilize the body cameras. He misled the country when he said the body cameras were not good body cameras because you could detect type GTEC or Axon, and these are used by most police departments in the United States. He then foolishly said that, well, the body cameras can be turned on and turned off, so we can't use them. You have to turn on and turn off a body camera to save battery life. If it is that a child has been molested, a wife has been abused, a confidential informant wants to give you information. So it shows his ignorance. The Police Service Commissioner said nothing by Guevara refusing to utilize body cameras. They've said nothing by him. Even if you don't want to use the body cameras, I got for 5 years, and Guevara in his last year in office has not acquired one. They've not said anything about him not utilizing the tasers that I provided that indirectly caused the death of a man because he had a piece of wood in his hand and the police were left with no choice but to use their firearm. He has said nothing about a commissioner of police who has a 3-point crime plan: state of emergency, state of emergency, and state of emergency. They have said nothing about the demand to increase the police service by 2,500 when international best practice, we are seeing police officers, the numbers diminishing. He has said nothing about a commissioner of police foolishly stating that he has taken no action on its officers when international best practice would have shown immediately they should have been suspended or put on an administrative duty. They have said nothing about this whole charade that has taken place in this matter with Kia Seeley, with her being allowed to be released for 3 months. She was not told about the matter, why the gunpowder residue wasn't utilized, why it is the Commissioner of Police was speaking about what happened 5 minutes before the actual shooting. They have remained silent. So if anybody should be removed from office, should be the Police Service Commission. They have failed miserably.
And along the lines of the extradition, the TTPS says that extradition remains an option if Seeley does not return voluntarily. How complicated are we talking that this process could become considering her medical condition?
It's not going to happen because to extradite someone who may be a U.S. citizen, the U.S. Agencies will now look at all the video footage, they will look at all the data, and they will very well say, but you all have to be crazy. You all didn't do gunpowder residue of our citizen. You all did not test her fingerprints to mesh it with the weapon that you claim that she had. You all are stating that you want to justify that this lady was the person who was the suspect, who you all saw as the target. Yet out of the 23 shots that connected with these two individuals, 19 hit the man whose hands were in the air, and only 4 hit the person who you were supposed to be aiming at. They will want to question how it is you could claim that she was shooting at you all when you all were walking in the open as if you all in a Rambo movie where the good guys never get shot, but the bad guys always get shot. They are going to question the fact of a commissioner of police stating you all need to look at what happened previously. They are going to question why it is she was never questioned about this in the first 6 days in the hospital, or why it is you waited 3 months to then bring it to her attention. They're going to question why it is a police officer drew his firearm several seconds after the 2 persons were neutralized. They are going to ask these questions, and when they ask these questions, it can act as a damning indication of the incompetence or possible cover-up of a matter like this. So if it goes down that way, it is going to be a big embarrassment to the law enforcement agencies, because many basic protocols pertaining to minimum use of force, armed conflict, use of body cameras, none of this have been done. And it is going to show a total embarrassment to policies that should have been made by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the hierarchy of the service, I should say.
And along those lines, Criminal Bar Association President Senior Counsel Israel Khan says that, the DPP would not have acted impulsively, but does that strengthen the credibility of the case moving forward?
It doesn't make it credible, it makes it incredible. Because as I said, based on all the things that I said, I support the Senior Counsel Khan that we cannot and must not question the professionalism of the DPP. But as I said, if it is that the DPP gets information, so say for example, the police decide to come up with the take to and show to the DPP, look, you see the fragmentation of the window, it went forward, so which means that the bullet came from inside the vehicle. The DPP is not a ballistic expert, so he'll get this from so-called qualified persons in the police service, but it shows their ignorance in understanding ballistic testing, because as I said, you can shoot from outside a vehicle and you will see the fragmentation coming out away from the window as well as going in, because you have shock waves. So if it is that they provide to the DPP, look what we have, I do not know if that's what they did, but that could very well have been an avenue that caused the DPP to have gone in that direction. So in other words, the DPP is going to come up with findings based on what was presented to him. And my point is, the police, they have all rights. It is their choice whether they want to lie, whether they want to mislead, whether they want to give the facts. That I do not know. But it is unfair if it is that the person who is being accused was not briefed previously before she gave the statement to the DPP, because you're supposed to be told, this is what we are accusing you of, this is what we are saying about you, so that the person now, through her attorney, can now make a proper and sound statement in her defense when it is forwarded to the DPP. If that was not done, you have now collapsed the case because you have not given her enough and ample warning to advise her of what her offenses were.
And this matter on a wider scale, could it, maybe set a precedent for future police-involved shootings in Trinidad and Tobago?
If what, sorry?
The matter, could it set a precedent for future police-involved shootings here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, yeah, well, again, it could. For 50 odd years before myself, no one ever thought of using body cameras. I got the body cameras. 1,200 body cameras, again, it goes back to the importance of utilizing these body cameras. If you utilize the body cameras, it will play a big part to defend the police officers when wrongfully accused, but it can also target and pinpoint police officers if it is they have used excessive use of force. And again, Guevara for the last year has spent more time attacking me for me getting body cameras than just getting bloody body cameras to replace what I read. If you don't like what it is I provided, because you're too good looking or because you felt intimidated by me, okay, fine. You've wasted $3 million in taxpayers' money. Why have you not provided one? And you do not need a body camera for every police officer. All that is required is 1,000 body cameras. You have no more than that on full operational duty at any one time. You give it as an issue, you're not going to use it. They must utilize it, come back to the station, you take it and you extract it to verify that they were actually turning it on, turning it off, recording, whatever. That is how it is utilizing body cameras. But for a year, he has not acquired one body camera. And instead of the Police Service Commission explaining that and justifying why it is he has not done it, this is what is causing the police constantly to be involved in all of these situations. And many of these situations, the police could very well have been justified in their actions. But it is causing them to be found guilty in the court of public perception simply because there's no body camera footage to verify what their claims are.
And, Attorney Farid Ali, he dropped a post and argued that if Kaya Sealy allegedly fired at the police and triggered officers' response, that she could be held criminally responsible for Joshua Samaru's death, even through police fired the fatal shots. Now, from your police and legal understanding, does this interpretation, make sense? And what should the public understand about the reasoning behind these charges?
Yes, that is correct. So people have been misinterpreting the fact that because she's being charged for manslaughter or so forth, it is being perceived that she shot Joshua Samaru. That is not what is being picked up here.
Right.
If it is that there's an armed conflict and one person is in a vehicle or in a house and shooting at the police, and the police are forced to return fire to protect themselves and others, and another person who's an innocent bystander is killed, that is, unfortunately, you call it collateral damage. Mm-hmm. But because of that person being killed, they were killed because you were the one who fired a firearm at the police, causing the police staff to return fire. And that is where now you will now be charged for manslaughter because you were the cause of the death of that person. So that is the angle it is going at. That because she would have been probably firing at the police officers, the police were forced to return fire, and because they killed him, she's now charged for his death because she caused him to be killed because she was firing at the police officers in the first place. I don't want to go down the road, as I said. If that is the case, police officers properly trained should be aiming at the target, the person who is the threat. How 19 bullets could hit the man whose hands were in the air and 4 bullets hit the person who you claim had a firearm? Make it make sense.
And lastly, Mr. Griffith, what would you say to the citizens who believe the justice system is failing Kaya Sealy this morning?
Well, yeah, it is, because in 2010, when I drafted the Ministry of Justice for the Honorable Prime Minister, for 5 years, the persons who held that position did nothing to revamp the criminal justice system. That's why I drafted the Ministry of Justice. And in this situation, yes, because of the system now for the appointment of the Commissioner of Police, it is flawed. Before we had international experts. So, for example, when international experts were there and I got 82%, Christopher didn't come in the top 20. as soon as they change it to the Police Service Commission being the sole process of the interviews, which is 50%, you're going to have it subjective. So somebody could be the dumbest person or not even qualified, and then when the Police Service Commission interviews you, you get 50 out of 50 and you give everybody else 0 out of 50. So the Police Service Commission is now the sole body, which never happened before. Not one person in the Police Service Commission has any senior training, qualification, or experience in law enforcement. That is madness by itself. So you have persons who are ignorant in law enforcement trying to decide who's a commissioner of police. That is what is causing the failure. That is what is causing a lack of confidence. We must change that to put it back to international experts selecting the best person, and we must try to work that Ministry of Justice in such a way to prevent irregularities like this. And finally, giving the Police Complaint Authority the teeth for them to be able to properly investigate and charge police officers if it is that they broke the law.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith, for coming on this morning and being a part of the conversation. As always, informative and timely, as you always do. Thank you so much for doing that. Guys,
my pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.
We are about to take a short break, and when we come back, we have another engaging conversation, so stay with us.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide, Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back. Continuing with our Beyond the Headlines segment, as government moves to strengthen road safety and the measures across Trinidad and Tobago, attention is also being placed on improving public transport and driver responsibility. Transport Minister Eliza Kaur recently announced plans for National Road Safety Campaign, the possible introduction of a checkered band maxi taxi system for rural communities, and efforts to include road safety education in schools. President of the Unified Route 3 Maxi Taxi Association, Vikash Kesundat, joins us this morning to weigh in on the proposals and the state of road safety nationwide. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Now,
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
What is your reaction to the government's planned for road safety campaign?
Well, I would say that the road safety campaign was something that the Association of Maxi Taxis of Trinidad and Tobago highlighted recently in a meeting, one of our advisory meetings, right, that we had with the ministry. We have an advisory committee for Maxi Taxis, and one thing we brought across was the reintroduction of the Road Safety Committee. They had that back in 2022. We had that committee set up by the then Minister Johansson, and it was basically reestablished, but nothing ever actually came out of it. So we're glad that we saw the minister actually grab this and run with it.
And you know, do maxi taxi operators believe enough is being done to address dangerous driving on the nation's road?
To address dangerous driving on the nation's roadways, the most important thing is the visibility of law enforcement, right? And I believe that right now we are lacking with that visibility when it comes down to dangerous driving on the nation's roadways, especially on the highways and even on the main roads, like the Southern Main Road, for example. We believe that something like how on the priority bus route there's the transit police, we should have something like that on the Southern Main Road established there to actually help for the visibility of that law enforcement is there. That is what is going to decrease these fatal crashes we see regularly.
And, you know, the minister announced plans for a checkered band maxi taxi system in undeserved rural communities. How beneficial could this be for commuters as well as operators?
Well, commuters, from my understanding, we had the stakeholder meetings with the prior administration concerning the checkered band mass taxi introduction. And it would have worked for some areas, and then it would not have worked for some because of the issue of overlapping, right, into the solid band routes. That was one of the issues that we have been having. Commuters will benefit where they will be actually finally being transported in vehicles that are legal, because currently we have illegal forms of transport, which is the PH, which they use on a daily basis in and out of those rural areas. So the commuters will benefit. However, again, proper policing is what we need for this to work properly. For example, in our zone where we have the Tabakita Shiguanas, we have some white panel vans working there currently, and it's like a maxi they work as, but they don't have the proper insurance, right? They are not legal for the road to carry passengers at this point in time. So the commuters will win. However, again, we have the issue of the overlapping onto the solid band routes. And again, the proper policing for us to, they're saying that they're not supposed to be allowed to go on the solid band routes. But again, who's going to police them?
Yeah. And would you say these are things along the lines of challenges, you know, that maxi taxi drivers currently face when even operating in rural areas?
The basic challenges, one of the reasons why the solid band maxis would not traverse into the rural areas is because of the road conditions.
Okay.
The road conditions and the profitability as well. And this goes back down to the point we're going to have where during the day, so in the morning period, you'll have the checkered band buses running to come out of the rural areas. They will be basically doing dumper loads. When they do dumper loads and for the rest of the day, they will have nothing to do basically, right? No form of income could be within the day. For it to be profitable to them, they have any public service vehicle, you have to have work throughout the day. Now, this is where the problem lies, because one of the criteria was that they wouldn't be allowed to work as a maxi on the road, like for instance the green bands. They will have a checkered green band, they have a checkered red band, right? The checkered green band would not be allowed to work on the roadway that we have, the regular routes they're talking about, like Swansfeld to Shigonas, Europe to Shigonas, for example.
Yeah.
So during the day, who is going to police these people who already have a age-registered vehicle with a ban on it? Because we already have this plague that we're going through right now with the PH. We have white panel vans working on our routes. We have PH vehicles working on our routes. And that's one of the challenges that legal operators with solid bands go through on a day-to-day basis.
And in terms of that reckless driving side of things, how serious is that issue among the public transport operators and even private motorists?
Well, I would say something when it comes to this reckless driving. Now, they label maxi operators as reckless drivers. They see them doing all kind of different types of drives to make ends meet at the end of the day. Because our main competitors, again, we're going back down the road of talking about the PH problem that we are having. We are not against the PH because we know that they are the ones who are supposed to be taking people after hours when the regular H vehicles are basically out of compliance at those hours. However, it's a 24-hour job now. They would just as a registered vehicle. And that's the problem that we're having, and that's one of the reasons you might see some reckless driving from mass taxi operators per se. So, again, we need proper policing outside there. We need to see the minister come out with something to probably legalize that these PH operators, that they come into the system, that they go get their COC, right? There's a bit of good character to come out there and get a taxi badge. I am being honest with you, I am pretty sure if we give them a time period within a year to come in to regularize these H vehicles, the playing field will be leveled, I should say. And it will be an easier, how I should say, it's going to be something that both the government going to benefit because they will have more people in the system.
Right.
We have some serious insurance differences when it comes down to the P vehicles compared to the H registered, right? The cost of insurance, then we have to be inspected, so our vehicles have to be a certain way, a certain standard every year compared to a P vehicle, which is every 3 years, right? So again, it will be beneficial to both parties. And the reckless driving that we're talking about from legal forms of transportation, again, is because of the fact that we need to make ends meet and we have no other choice.
Mm-hmm. And what role does, or the Maxi Taxi Association currently play in promoting safe driving practices among the drivers right now?
Well, we'll speak to our operators as best as possible. Again, we have the bad apples, and let's say out of 100 operators, we might have, let's say, 5 road operators who might be driving recklessly.
Right.
Right. Something I should highlight as well too when we talk about reckless driving, our statistics are very low when it comes down to any major accidents or any accidents at all when it comes down to maxi taxis. Because at the end of the day, our maxi taxi is our bread and butter, right? That's accident for us means it's downtime, unpaid downtime, and we can't afford that. Majority of us can't afford that.
Yeah. And the government is even considering adding road safety to the school's curriculum. Do you think educating children early could make a difference in that long-term journey for it?
Yes, I do. I do think so, and I think that it will help the situation from a younger age. I mean, to say they will instill it into these kids' brains that, okay, what is road safety? Because a lot of kids don't even know how to cross the road nowadays. Sometimes we transport children that don't know how to cross the roads. We have to stop and literally cross them, right? And not only in the school system, but we need to find, I think the Transport Commissioner, Mr. Clark, needs to find and put some more work into the whole aspect of getting a license right. Right? I think we need to reformulate how it is this whole process takes place.
Yeah. And other than having the police out, are there any other measures, you'd like to see implemented immediately to make roads safer for both drivers and even passengers?
So I will talk about the speed gun that they recently introduced, the new speed guns, I should say. I think they utilize these speed guns at the wrong time of day, right? They will use it during midday time when there is regular traffic on the roadways. These speed guns that need to be used during the peak hours, like not peak hours, I should say the dead hours, the hours like in the morning period, or the entire, like for instance, we are sometimes as taxi operators, we're outside late in the night. We will be outside there looking between the hours of 12, okay, let's say 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. You could traverse the entire Solomon Hochoi Highway and you would not see a speed trap anywhere. And this is where you will see the general public flying on the highways. Those are the hours that you need to be outside there.
Yeah. In public confidence in public transport safety can sometimes be low. What assurances can operators give to commuters?
Sorry, I thought you broke up for a minute there. Could you just repeat that?
Sure, absolutely. So public confidence in the public transport safety can sometimes be low. What assurances can operators give to commuters?
All right, so we could assure you guys that our operators are well-trained individuals who depend on this job for their livelihoods, right? For their bread and butter at the end of the day, to support their families. So they would not do anything to hamper them from being able to operate a maxi taxi at the end of the day. Right now, I would tell you, let's say I have 100 members on our association. This is just a figure off the top of my head. I can assure you that 95 of them are safe drivers, and they would not do anything to hamper themselves or their vehicle or even their passengers. Because without the passengers, again, we are nothing. We depend on them for our daily bread. So again, we are the safest drivers I think you'll come across.
And along those lines, how do operators balance that pressure to make trips quickly while still driving responsibly?
That's a tricky question, eh? To make trips quickly. When it comes down to the roadways that we have right now, I don't think trips are quick. I don't think we have any like quick trips because the traffic situation is terrible, right? So we face the traffic and we move at a reasonable rate to get our commuters safely again to their destination.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Vikash, for coming on this morning and sharing with us. Any final words you'd like to leave with the viewers that's looking on this morning?
I would like to invite Trinidad and Tobago to understand, right, that maxi taxi operators and H vehicle operators on the whole, we stand together as one. We are industry that basically survives, right? We survive with the population supporting us. And I'm asking them to understand what is the legal form of transportation. Each registered vehicles. I come to understand that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of them, they do not understand what each one of vehicle represents. Because you would see a picker pop them, they will just stop and jump into the picker without even thinking twice. They wouldn't even look. We see school children right now. We are going into schools right now in our area to try and educate children of what type of vehicle to travel in. Right? Again, safety. We have a serious crime rate right now going on. People are going missing. Right? A maxi taxi is something that is marked. Right? We are applauding them. They come to us. Right. We are here for you. We have the lowest rates. Come to us. Let us take you to your destination safely.
Thank you, Mr. Vikash, for coming on this morning and being a part of the conversation and for sharing that information with us.
No worries. Thank you again.
Yeah. Guys, we are about to take another short break, and when we come back, we have more engaging stuff for you, so stay with us.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna
to me.
respond
Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back. Now we'd like to thank Mr. Guy Griffiths and Mr. Vikash Kisundat for coming on and being a part of this morning's conversation. It was truly informative and timely with what they came on to share with us. Up next, we're going to show you all a clip with Dr. Randy C. Prasad talking about is the public coming desensitized to crime. And with that, we leave you with it this morning. So take a look at the video. Welcome back. Continuing with our time shift segment, once upon a time, a single murder would dominate conversations for days. Today, multiple killings can happen within hours, and for many citizens, it barely registers beyond another social media notification or evening headline. As Trinidad and Tobago continues to grapple with violent crime, gang activity, and repeated states of emergency, questions are now emerging, not only about public safety, but about the psychological impact crime is having on society itself. Have citizens become emotionally exhausted? Are we becoming desensitized to violence? And what does that mean for future generations growing up in an environment where murder scenes, police tape, and gun violence are increasingly common? Criminologist Dr. Randy C. Prasad joins us this morning to explore whether Trinidad and Tobago is becoming a nation numb to crime. Good morning, Dr. C. Prasad.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Now, from a criminologist's perspective, what does it mean for society to become desensitized to crime?
Right, so you're saying that crime is something that is becoming normalized in the society. You're seeing it every day. It would have been years ago, a serious offense was something that was out of the ordinary. It would sort of engender shock, a certain kind of societal reaction to the perpetration of the offense. Now, we've reached a point where it's so commonplace that, people it's just a number on your phone. It's something, it's as if it's the norm now, rather than something that really is associated with any kind of deep emotional reaction, including trauma or disgust or whatever kind of reaction you're talking about. So we are looking at a society that potentially is actually becoming desensitized. And of course, there are negative consequences that could go with that as well.
Yeah. And now, can repeated exposure to violent change, show that persons are emotionally, or how they emotionally respond to tragedy?
Yes, indeed it can. What it does is that it reduces your emotional response. And, the unfortunate thing is that I think what that can do is that it unfortunately reduces our willingness, our energy, our motivation to actually do something about the crime. And it is as if we are a society, we could potentially become a society in which we don't necessarily care. And I'm not trying to say that in a bad way. What I'm trying to say is that there would have been a time where, the society at large would have played an important role in terms of containing and controlling the crime situation. So, you would have heard that old adage, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about socialization processes, we're talking about adults intervening when they see youths engaged in unacceptable behavior, etc. What could happen if we are desensitized as a nation is that we step back from that entire role of a nation, so to speak, parenting and guiding its youths so that we ensure that they move along the correct path.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a very serious negative consequence, because the thing about it is, and as a lot of research suggests, it's not just law enforcement and the courts and the prisons and the police and all of that really by and large controls the crime situation. Really, informal social mechanisms of behavior regulation tend to be far more important. If you think about the majority of persons that perhaps you may know, including yourself, you would find that you do the right thing because you've been socialized in a certain way, you've been brought up in a certain way, there are certain expectations for your behavior, and you don't do the right thing simply because you're afraid of the police or you're afraid of the courts or the prisons, right? So socialization, I think, and the society at large plays a fundamental role when it comes to controlling the crime situation. And I think the society doesn't necessarily recognize that. We do it as parents, we do it as teachers, as community members, etc., but we don't realize just how important our role is. And when we unfortunately become desensitized, what we could potentially do is step back from that role and neglect to engage, in the socialization aspects that reduce the propensity towards crime. And if we do that, then we begin to fail as a society in terms of our role, of containing the crime situation.
Mm-hmm. And how dangerous is it when citizens begin to see violence as normal?
I think it is something that's certainly negative, and I've alluded to it already, and it's really unfortunate, because I have to come in here with what you're seeing on social media as well.
Right.
Because my understanding is that people are committing very, very gruesome crimes and putting those things on social media. So on a daily basis, almost, you have access to murders being committed live, so to speak. You have, mutilations, people using cutlasses and all these things, these videos being put up on social media where young persons can view these things these things become normalized, and it goes beyond, you ask about the negative consequences, how dangerous it could be. It's not just a case of becoming desensitized and stepping back in terms of our role as a society, in terms of our role, socialization role in families and all of that. But it's, the boundaries are being pushed to the point where violence itself becomes normalized in the society, right? And you have things like social learning processes, motivational processes, group influence processes, where young persons, may reach a point where they believe it might even be okay and acceptable to engage in certain types of behavior,
Right.
including very violent behavior. So you see younger persons, let's say in gangs, for instance, want to outdo each other in terms of the levels of violence that they could perpetrate against others. And so the danger is that not only are you desensitizing a nation, but potentially you're socializing the upcoming generation of youths, especially those who have, I would say, unlimited and unfiltered access to social media content. You're socializing them into, a mindset where violence is something that is commonplace, where it is acceptable. And, the unfortunate thing, and I think we know this, is that the algorithms that are used on social media, they will keep track of what you are viewing, and they will feed you more of this content. So if it is that you are viewing violence being committed, social media will automatically start to target you by putting more and more violence on your phone or your device. So it becomes, you become saturated with that level of violence. So it's a very, very disturbing thing. And I dare say this, I know this is going to be controversial. We talk about freedom of the press, freedom of access to information. But I dare say, and I wonder whether it will reach a point where it might be appropriate to at least filter some of this kind of content through legislative means, or at the very least, educate parents about the kinds of parental controls you could potentially put, let's say, on your child's devices, so that you filter out some of this kind of content, because it is indeed very, very harmful.
Yeah. And, let's talk a bit on the effect that this environment can have on the youth, in terms of, are we at risk, of creating a generation that sees violence as a part of everyday life?
Well, indeed, I would say that's a resounding yes to that particular question. And we see it all around us. We see it in the schools, we see it in the communities. The moment something happens, it's already there, put up on social media for everybody to see, and you receive it on your phones, almost automatically. So we're so in touch with, the violence that is happening in society and the frequency of it that it becomes commonplace. And the ironic thing is that being bombarded with this level of intensity of violent offenses happening around you will alter your perceptions, and even so, in ways that may be inconsistent with what is happening. And I'll give you an example. We know, for instance, under the state of emergency, that crime figures are down, violent crime figures are down, not just for murders, but other types of violent crimes. They are down compared to previous comparable reporting periods. Yet, if you ask people what are their perceptions of crime, they will tell you that crime is sky high, and it's higher than it has ever been, notwithstanding that the actual numbers of murders currently are 50%, 40 to 50% of, lower than they were in the previous comparable reporting period. And the reason for people's perceptions is that they are being bombarded with each and every event that happens in all of the gory details of it.
Yeah.
So they're seeing it happening constantly around them. And, because of that, there are psychological consequences as well, I dare say. One of the big areas that focuses on that is the issue of fear of crime. And, you know, when you're fearful of crime, and we have a nation, I dare say, that is extremely fearful, there are all kinds of consequences. The most obvious ones, of course, would be, you know, you're spending a lot of money on security measures. I'm not saying don't put security measures in place. You definitely need to do those things, but you spend an inordinate amount of money on security behaviors, security expenditure. You change your behaviors. For instance, you know, curtail the hours at which you go out, the places to which you go to. But there are also psychological consequences like anxiety, depression, and so forth that happen as a result of fear of crime.
Yeah.
So you know, it really, that perception really creates a problem for us in the country, because it's creating a society that is going to start to withdraw into itself. We are withdrawing into our homes. You know, we no longer know who is the person residing next to us, or know people, you know, in our neighborhoods and in our villages, when we in fact should. We should be networking. We should be, you know, looking out and seeing what is happening in the village, what is happening with the youths, you know, which vehicles are entering the villages, etc., etc. We should be collaborating and sharing information.
Yeah.
But a society that is becoming fearful is one that withdraws into itself. You know, we withdraw behind locked walls and locked doors, you know, and that has negative consequences.
Mm-hmm. And now you mentioned this. So along those lines, you know, years ago, one murder would shock the nation. But today, several murders in a weekend may barely even spark a reaction. Can you tell us why, and, you know, tie it into what you were saying before?
Right. So we're talking about the same desensitizing effects.
Yeah.
You know, you see multiple murders, and you know, quite honestly, multiple murder events have been happening with some frequency, and it just seems like the norm. And that's really, really unfortunate, you know, because it can never be, you know, even whether you're talking a professional criminologist or a member of society or, you know, a police officer, etc., it can never be that these are just numbers. I think sometimes the only time that it really hits you and you really understand is if it comes close to home. And I think we've been desensitized to the point that we sometimes feel, you know, this problem is other people's problem. And that's the mistake that we make as a society, because it's not other people's problems only. It's everybody's problem. When you live in a society where crime is at a level that it far exceeds that of many countries in the region, and certainly of many international jurisdictions as well, right? And you don't really fully realize the impact of it until it hits home. Let's say it's a close family member or an immediate family member who becomes a victim of murder. That traumatizes the entire family and affects them for the rest of their lives. Imagine, for instance, if a family loses a breadwinner. So it's not enough. It's really not enough for us as a society to become complacent and think, well, oh, okay, just another murder, another triple murder,
Right.
or what have you. It's a human life that is being lost each time, and that's a very serious thing.
And, you know, does prolonged exposure to crime would you say it weakens the public confidence in institutions like, you know, the police force and the justice systems we have here in Trinidad and Tobago?
It can, and it comes back to that same issue that our perceptions of crime may actually be far out of line with the reality of the crime. And I mentioned previously that under the state of emergency, we are seeing far fewer violent crimes occurring. Notwithstanding that, because of the bombardment from social media and other sources, people feel that crime is up. And if people feel that crime is up, then of course, one of the avenues that they're going to go to almost very, very quickly or immediately is to blame the justice institutions. They're going to start to blame the courts, blame the prisons, blame the judicial system, etc. So it weakens the, you know, the confidence that people have in those systems, despite the fact that those systems are playing a very pivotal role in actually keeping the numbers down. And the unfortunate consequence of that is that people's, lack of confidence and lack of trust, which could be engendered, itself will contribute to the crime problem. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. Let's say people witness crimes. They may decide not to report it because they're afraid of the perpetrators, they're afraid of retaliation, they don't want to go to court, they feel it's a waste of time, they feel that the evidence that they provide really wouldn't just get, secure any convictions. They believe that the police is corrupt. So people's perceptions really play a very, very pivotal role in how they interact with the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
And this thing is, the criminal justice system depends on the society, depends on the reporting from the society. It depends on the witness testimony that is provided by members of society to be able to successfully prosecute and secure convictions. So when the criminal justice system fails, it is also partly a failure of the society. And I think members of the society don't often recognize the critical role that they play in the justice process. And if we lose confidence in the criminal justice system, even wrongly so, and withdraw our input in the criminal justice system processes, then we are contributing to its failure as well. And that's really a very unfortunate consequence.
And is there a connection between, that economic hardship, social instability, and even increased tolerance of violent behavior?
So, it's one thing to talk about the relationship of economic hardship with tolerance of violent behavior versus engagement in violent behavior, right? There is much less research, and it's indeed, in my mind, quite unclear whether there is a relationship between socioeconomic hardship and the tolerance for violent behavior. But on the other hand, I could tell you that there is much more research looking at economic hardship and deprivation and engagement in violent behavior. And what the research generally shows is that communities that are neglected and marginalized and in which there is, very little access to legitimate avenues for upward social mobility, such as access to jobs, access to education, etc., you find that persons in these communities may have almost no choice but to gravitate towards sociologists call illegitimate opportunity structures, meaning quite often engaging in crime, joining gangs, other kinds of illicit groups that create other kinds of avenues for upward social mobility and for gaining that sense of recognition, that sense of status in one's communities, etc. So the thing is, there is that relationship, but what it signals, not for tolerance of violence, but for actual engagement in violence. And what at least that part signals to us is that when we have communities that are marginalized and stigmatized, we need to do a lot more, to build that sense of entrepreneurship, to create opportunities within those communities to change kind of stigmatization. But, coming back to your original question, which speaks about, tolerance of violence, yeah. I think that for me still remains an empirical question that requires, further research.
Absolutely. And now, is there a fine line between keeping citizens informed and overwhelming them with crime content?
There more than likely is a fine line.
Yeah.
On the one hand, there is a need for transparency, and I get that. Transparency, reporting, not hiding, the crime statistics from citizens. And there was a time, I know that CAPA, would put their statistics up online. I know that they took it down, in fact, for a while. I don't know if they put it back up, but that is certainly something that should be public. It's not something that you should hide from the public.
Right.
And if anything, the data that is there online would even serve to, at least affect the perceptions. People would know, okay, if you look at the statistics, and when reporters report on the objective statistics, they would be able to say objectively, okay, crime is down, so that people know, they have a sense that they are being bombarded by social media and it's affecting their perceptions in a way that might be out of line with reality. So I think we have to strike a balance. Freedom of the press is very, very important. Freedom of information is something that's very important. But we have to know as well that the kind of uncensored overload and the kind of graphic content, that comes through social media, etc., we have to ask ourselves, at what point does it become too much? It's one thing to report on crime statistics and give the background of an offense that has happened, but it's very much another thing to put a graph, in all graphic detail, the acts that, may have been engaged in during the commission of a murder. You have to say that that is information that could indeed be extremely harmful, and the research supports it. So you have to know when to draw the line. And I think, given that, at present, there are no laws that would censor that. Parents have to take the lead. They have to take the rein. And too often, I would say that parents are so busy that the devices become the de facto parent. And once the kids remain quiet and you get your space as a parent to do what you have to do, they are quiet and not disturbing you too much, then you feel that everything is okay. But everything is not necessarily okay. And, we as parents of the nation, the parents of the nation collectively, have to take the reins, because there are such things as parental controls.
Right.
And many of the parents out there, they are not up to date with the technology. The simplest things, for instance, they can't do on their phones. And when they have to do something like add a contact or send a message or something, they have to rely on their kids to do it for them, because they don't understand the technology. But what we as parents have to understand is that that very same technology gives the kids uncensored access to everything everywhere in the world. And I'm not just talking Trinidad and Tobago. There are atrocities happening in the Middle East and Africa, all over the world, and we have access to all of it, right? And so we have to take the reins. We have to read up on parental controls. Check ChatGPT. Let ChatGPT guide us if we can't figure out how to do it ourselves, and put those kinds of controls with passwords on our kids' devices, so we start to filter some of the content out. And I'm not just talking violence. I'm talking pornography. I'm talking anything that could really harm the kids. Those parental controls on the devices actually have, tabs that will allow us to select what kind of content we want to filter out.
Right.
And so the job is really an easy one, and it's just a click of a few buttons. It's just for us to take the time, and I dare say invest in our children's mental health and well-being by putting those parental controls in place. And, if the state isn't doing it because of freedom of speech and all of that, we as parents have the right to do it.
And if we compare Trinidad and Tobago, today to maybe 15 or 20 years ago, what major social changes stand out regarding public relations or reactions to crime?
Right. So, I would say 15 to 20 years ago, the society would have been a very, very different one. That adage that I mentioned, that it takes a village to raise a child, that would have been definitely true. I dare say it still exists in certain areas, and perhaps more so in rural communities than in urban communities. And it was a whole different scenario where those informal systems of social control were in place. And at the heart of it is the socialization process and the way that people react, whether negatively or positively, to certain behaviors that occur. So if a crime would have occurred, or if a youth would have engaged in something that was unacceptable, not necessarily even a crime, but something that is seen as unacceptable, people would have reacted. They would have reacted very, very quickly. And they would have reacted in a way that it signals very, very clearly to the child that that kind of behavior is unacceptable. So what it did, in effect, was that it, so to speak, constrained or shaped the behavior of children along acceptable lines, right? And of course, that would have been 15, 20 years ago. But things are changing. Things are definitely changing. And part of the landscape, I dare say, certainly is the, the desensitization that we're speaking about, but part of it as well is the economic commitments that parents have. We have, a large number of single-parent families, for instance, or even with families with two parents, both are working quite often very long hours. They have very little time to supervise their own children, much less to engage with other children in the community. So, and I mentioned the issue of fear of crime. As soon as you come home, you're looking left and right, you shoot into your gate, you lock the gate, you go inside, you lock your house. So there's no opportunity for you to see, kids outside in the neighborhood, whether they're doing something right or they're doing something wrong. Even if they're doing something wrong, you might peek through your curtain, but you dare not go out in the yard to tell them something and correct them. So I'm saying that the reaction, you're asking about, the reaction to crime 15 or 20 years ago versus nowadays, it's not just crime, but it's all kinds of unacceptable behavior. There would have been a much stronger reaction 15 to 20 years ago to unacceptable behavior, including crime, compared to now. So really what we have to do is bring back those systems of informal control. We can't underestimate the importance of that in terms of controlling the crime situation. What I will tell you that one of the things, and it's related to this, one of the things that the Ministry of Homeland Security is pushing very, very strongly right now is the generation and implementation of interventions that target very young children. I'm talking preschool, primary school, secondary school. And the reason for it is that we know from a massive amount of international research that if you target the children, when they're young, you're going to make a difference to the type of person they become when they get older. And this is something that's very, very important. And I think something that the society needs to know, that if we react, in the way that we did 15 or 20 years ago, and we react in a concerted way, in a collective way that sends a very clear message to young children that certain things are acceptable and certain things are unacceptable, then what we do is we'll be socializing a generation of children in such a way that we reduce their propensity for engaging in crime. So it's something that's very, very important that we as a society need to take the reins and I dare say go back to where we were 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah. And along those lines of that comparison or even change more so, are citizens now consuming crime almost like entertainment because of that constant exposure online? Would you say that?
I would definitely say that there's a yes to that. And it's unfortunate, because as I said, it's not entertainment at all. It's very, very serious business.
It is.
And you only really recognize the gravity of it, if it hits close to home, as I said before, if it's a loved one, a close family member, this has the potential. Let's say a close family member being murdered. That could destroy your family completely. Your entire family could fall apart as a result of that. And it's not just the day or 2 days or 3 days after. It's long term. It will totally change the trajectory of your life when the children, let's say if you lose the income from one of the income earners or the only income earner, and it's not only that, the supervision that person would have provided, to the younger persons in the family, that's gone. The protection that person would have provided is gone.
Yeah.
And you're talking about negative consequences that could come. The kids in that family, for instance, become much more vulnerable, to abuse, because of the ills associated with poverty, educational failure as a result of reduced financial support and psychological support and emotional trauma, even the anger, that is engendered and the deep emotional trauma engendered as a result of that violent crime could put that child along a pathway where they themselves become extremely violent because they now want to lash out at others and at a society, which in a sense to them, from their perspective, has wronged them. So it's a very serious matter indeed that I think sometimes we really underestimate, and it's not entertainment. It's not entertainment, right? But unfortunately, social media somehow has brought us to the point where young persons could witness a brutal murder, and they laugh about it on television, not realizing the gravity of it. And we have to be able to distinguish between, fiction on a movie from reality. It's a whole difference,
Yeah, it really is. And in your view, the national conversation, has this conversation around crime become more emotional, more political, or more indifferent over time?
Well, it depends on which sector you look at. If it's the national public, more than likely, my sense is, and this is not from research, I'm not aware of research which has actually engaged in this, but at least anecdotally from what you're seeing on the news and so forth, people have tended to become much more indifferent. And I think we've already clearly established, there are negative consequences as a result of that.
Right.
But as I mentioned, it all depends on who you look at. And if we look at this from a state and a governmental standpoint, what I actually see is just the opposite, because I am aware of what is happening in government and particularly in the Ministry of Homeland Security when it comes to the fight against crime. And it's something that is seen as very, very urgent. I know that there is a lot of activity happening right now. Officials from the Ministry of Homeland Security, for instance, convened a massive symposium several weeks ago, and they brought together a lot of, in fact, all of the major stakeholders. You're talking Children's Authority, Ministry of Education, the judiciary, the prisons, the police, across the board, agencies that had to deal with children. They also, ministry officials also visited Tobago and pulled the stakeholders in Tobago together to discuss the issue and to start to generate recommendations, fine-tune those recommendations, and they've already started to put some of those recommendations in place. And as I said, the focus is on very young children in the primary school, the preschool and the secondary school, and interventions designed to reduce their propensity for engagement in crime. So this is something that is happening with pace, I dare say, and I sense a lot of energy. So there isn't indifference on the part of the government. So it really depends on who you look at for that question.
Okay, thank you for that. And lastly, what message would you like to leave with viewers about not becoming, numb to violence or criminal activities around them?
Right. So we as a society, I would say we should not at all become complacent, because we've already established that becoming complacent really has a lot of negative consequences. We withdraw into our homes, into ourselves. We don't support the criminal justice system processes which lead to successful prosecution and convictions of criminal offenders. I would also say to the society to take the time, those of us who have children, take the time, read up on parental controls. If you don't know how to do it, you search YouTube. You can get a YouTube video which will show you how to put on parental controls in your child's phone or devices. Or you check ChatGPT, that would also guide you very, very well. Put those parental controls on the child's devices, and you could be saving your child, because you don't know quite often what they are seeing what they are exposed to. And I think if we as adults, some of us, were able to see some of the contents that the kids have access to, we would certainly be appalled beyond belief. So I would say take the few moments and do that little thing by putting the parental controls on your children's devices. You could be saving yourself and your child a lot of grief in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. C. Prasad, for coming on this morning and being a part of this conversation. It was truly
my pleasure.
It was truly informative and insightful, and I do hope that viewers looking on can take away something from it and be that brother's keeper that we once were 15 to 20 years ago, and really look out, because it does take a village to raise the upcoming generation. So it really shows a lot. We need to get back to where we once were.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Guys, we are about to take a short break. When we come back,
WESN.
Our award